This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Welcome, friends. I am so grateful and excited to have you join us here on World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. Now, since 2018, it is an exciting path that we have continuously explored in discovering all that we can about all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening as we chat one-on-one with some of the world's top experts, master teachers, and icons of these topics. Now, before we head off to meet today's featured guest, I invite you to take a moment to grab your free copy of my short ebook, The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest a positive and permanent change in your life. This is a book that can help you on the path to live the life you love and love the life you live. Just click on the link below in the show notes to download your free copy today. Now, off to the interview. Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon is my guest for today's show. She is a naturopathic doctor, quantum scientist, linguist, and theologian, integrating these different wisdoms into one language of miracles, which I love because I'm a Course in Miracles student, and I know there's no order of difficulty in miracles, and we'll talk about that. Now, her scientific approach to miracles has helped countless people remember truth, love, and purpose. Dr. Sharnael is also an accomplished educator and an author of 5 books. 2 of her most recent titles are The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, and Keto Reset, 31 Days to New Life. And she has produced numerous teachings on the topics of divine science and the human bodies. And I am excited to have you here, Sharnael. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
Well, thank you so much, Carl. Appreciate you very much. And I appreciate your work and what you're doing for the world. Appreciate it very, very much. This is going to be fun.
All right. Well, hopefully there's lots of light here. And we're going to shine that off to the universe. But, you are so interesting in my research. My understanding is that before you became a naturopathic doctor, you were a minister and you had major health scare that led you down the path to studying and practicing naturopathic medicine and a whole new direction in your life. Can you please tell us about this part of your life?
Absolutely. So, yes, I was 20 years in ministry and and I actually still think I'm in ministry, although some people would disagree. The definition for me of ministry is just serving the world and helping people, connect to love and themselves. So, but anyway, when I was a part of that different type of ministry, or what they think is different anyway, I was on 6 planes a week, traveling, teaching at retreats and conferences and churches and different things, and working like 120 hours a week, which is a lot. And trying to I was going to say trying to find balance. I had no balance. The diet was terrible. I wasn't living my best life for sure, as far as a lot of the physical things. So I found myself, I guess, probably the last 7 years of that just really not well. Low grade fever, really, really feeling tired, just a lot of chronic fatigue, inflammation. I was super overweight. I would just go to doctor after doctor, and they had me on 33 meds at one time. A lot of side effects. It didn't start out like, here's 33 medicines. It was like, try this, and there was more side effects, and well, let's try this. And different doctors had different things. I don't think they were even talking to each other. It was a cluster of a lot of things. But anyway, all that being said, I didn't feel so great still, no matter what they were doing. It was like, this isn't working, and I only knew of that perspective as far as the medical, uh, Western medicine type, just because I grew up military and you just went to the base and you did whatever they said. And my parents brought me in, we did all the things. So I hadn't ever been introduced to anything naturopath. I didn't even know what naturopathic doctor was. But I was teaching a course on dreams and visions. And I loved to teach on like the supernatural and the miracles. And, I was trying to find the equation or the formula of like how to live a supernatural life and how to have a daily life of miracles moment to moment to moment. And that's been a long journey for all of us. You're on the same path of just like living it and embodying it and carrying that. But when I was in this teaching this course, there was a woman there who had hosted me and she saw all my medicine, and I had a small suitcase of like all the things I had to pack around, and she saw me popping pills, and it was mental gymnastics, to be honest, of like, take this with that, and this can't go together, and this is at night, and this is the morning, and this was with water, and this is with food, and this has got to be milk. And wow, I mean, I was exhausted just with that and getting prescription refills and constantly going to the doctor and then sitting in waiting rooms full of sick people, just to get a refill and then going home with something else, because I picked up whatever they had, or so I didn't really know what I was doing until I met, well, I don't know what I'm doing now, but anyway, I'm always learning. But I went and this lady kept telling me about this one doctor, and I was really depressed at the time. I was like hopeless. I was thinking, why go to another doctor? There's not going to be any answers. There hasn't been any answers. Like, what's one more guy going to do? But she really seemed convincing, and I went, and this guy was so intriguing. He was an MD, or he is still an MD, and he's also very spiritual, which I had not seen that combination before. And he had all these crazy inventions and technology that I had never been introduced to. And this is back in 2008, Carl. So now it's a lot more mainstream. Some of these things, like hyperbaric chamber, ozone therapy, red light therapy, PEMF, biofeedback. A lot of these things are a lot more mainstream, a lot more accepted now. But again, back then it was like, what are these Russian technologies? What are these, German things you got here, lasers and stuff. And so I'm geek. I had mentioned I'm a geek, and I love tech. I don't like technology, but I love these like kind of quantum things. And so he introduced me to a lot of different stuff, and he actually introduced me to essential oils, and he talked about the frequency of essential oils. If you have a real oil, there is a vibe. It's science. It's not like a woo woo. That led me to look into crystals and some other things. There was a part of my brain that was like, this is intriguing and it sounds good and it seems like it's connecting some dots. But it also seemed like, what in the world? I'm going to sniff an oil and things are going to get better. Like, really? And and then with my programming from the cultural church situation that I was in, and I'm not saying all of them are like that, but the one that I was in was like, oh, that's the devil, and stay away from that. And even though it's actually in their own text, 1,600 times, mentions of essential oils. But so there was like a conflict of like, do I do this? Like, is this okay to even look into it? Because I'm being told no, but it seems like a thing, and this guy's spiritual. It was a lot of overcoming in my mindsets of just taking risks and doing things. But I started doing what he said, and I got off all the meds in 16 weeks. I dropped 80 pounds.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
Yeah, I also was like, well, and I hadn't changed my diet. Like that was just doing what he said. And so I thought, well, shoot, if I'm doing this well without even changing my diet, why not change my diet too? Like let's just go for this. And I knew better, I just wasn't doing what I knew. And so I started really implementing that type of lifestyle as well, and exercising. And my background was undergraduate kinesiology and wellness. So I worked in cardiac rehab, I worked in psych units, I did dietitian things, I was a trainer at gyms, and did all of that. And then when I popped into ministry, just the travel, the airports, the rush, the grabbing things quick, whatever's available, whatever people will feed you. My diet was mostly, honestly, at the time, like Coca-Cola, Doritos, Rice Krispie bars, like not good. Um, so yeah, I don't eat any of that anymore. But when I could really shift, I started getting these like inner voices about going back to school. And I always knew I would go back to school. I thought I would be in divinity or something along the same path I was in. But with all of this kind of dissonance of like the new things versus the old and just whatever, I was like, I kept getting this ND thing, and I'm like, I didn't even really know a whole lot about it. This one doctor was an MD, but then all these NDs started coming into my life, and I was like, wow, that's kind of intriguing. And why not get to the root of things instead of just band-aid everything? And that makes sense, And um, I was sitting on the tarmac on a plane going to, I don't remember which city at the time, but I just said out loud, like, or I might have said it in my mind, but either way, I said it. And I asked the question, God, do you really want me to go back to school at 37 as a, to be an ND? And I had 3 kids. I was divorced. I was like, how am I even going to do this? And I look out the window of the airplane and I see the tarmac, and there is like these cones, and different things. And one of the cones had an ND with an arrow pointing in the direction I was going.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, okay, God, I hear you. Let's do this. And so that was, I believe, a Friday. And Monday, I was on the phone with one of my friends who was an MD and an ND and a pastor, and basically was like, this is where you could go, blah, blah, blah. And I was enrolled and started that path. So I got finished in 2014. I did not go to school to be in a practice. I didn't think I was going to open a practice and see people in real life. Like I thought that I just needed this knowledge, because when I got really better, Carl, I was still going to these conferences for a while and teaching, and people couldn't even recognize me. Like they were like, "Oh," they heard my voice and they were like, "Oh my gosh, that's you," and maybe I looked happier, maybe I looked, I was definitely thinner. I went from like a size 22 to I think a 5 or a 6 in pant size, and they were just like, "Oh," and so we had prayer lines in church. They probably still do. There were lots of people that needed health issue, support. And I thought I was going to school to not just help keep me well and my family and have answers for myself, but also because I would go and these people were saying, well, can you teach this like at our retreat or at our conference? And when I would teach it and explain what happened to me, then I would go home and my office emails and voicemail. Back then we had voicemail in a little box. You hit the thing, it would just be full, like 29 messages, 40 messages. And it was all these people who had seen me in real life and said, hey, my husband this or my daughter that, can you help? Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't feel equipped to know how to help anybody. So I thought, well, this will help me be able to help people. And then it turned into, I was doing consultations and paid consultations. And when I finished school, um, really kind of turned into a job of just like doing a lot of what they now call telecom kind of med stuff, which wasn't really super well done or well known either back in those days. I think when the C crazy thing came out of this last few years, a lot of regular mainstream doctors were doing all these phone things. But even before that, I had like 15,000 patients over the phone, like all over the world. And now it's even bigger than that, so
I was wondering if we could clarify a couple things here. First of all, ND, so for people who don't understand, that's naturopathic doctor, right?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The other thing is, when you're a minister, now you're talking about you were a minister of basically mainstream religion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a little different than what you're doing now, and the other thing is, I don't know if you want to talk about it. I mean, what exactly was the main illness that was bothering you when that caused you to get on all those meds?
Yeah, they could never determine anything what was wrong.
Hmm.
They kind of had the umbrella of adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, which is what they pretty much label everything that they can't figure out.
Yeah, yeah.
But my symptoms were low grade fever, 24 hours a day for 6 to 7 years, really achy, no energy whatsoever. I really believe mold was a factor. And and I've dealt with black mold and regular mold since and being in Louisiana, I don't know how it is in Ohio, but there's a lot of just the humidity and everything. So that's kind of what they said. Since then, actually, I dealt with cancer in 2016 and was able to reverse it completely naturally by using these same devices and doing things you would think I would learn the first time to not get myself there. Um, but some different things happen, and the next thing you know, I'm back with that same doctor, and he's given me this diagnosis, and I was like, good God, like, but balance is something I really have to be aware of, because I get in this service mode and I put, I in the past 120 hours a week was like not a big thing, because there's so many people to help. Oh my gosh, let me just do this. And I literally have to schedule out like no work this day, like and I try to stay in those boundaries because I never want to get back. And I think that I would just work myself so low in a frequency vibe that the stress was hurting me, and just taking on other people's stuff and not dealing with the things that were happening at the time, with relationship issues and grief, and all of there's a lot of what they call conversion disorder, which 86% of all physical issues are really emotional. And
Well,
so when
and
emotional things would happen, I would just like keep working, do the thing, not deal with the emotions, and I'm better, but I'm still learning.
well, I'm glad you pointed that out because I know A Course in Miracles and other spiritual teachings all say that illness and injury all are start at the level of the mind. And then stress, of course, is a result of, like you said, emotions and fear and anxiety. And once that you can heal that part, then the body follows along with it too. And that is such an important thing to do. And it sounds exactly like what you're doing now. But I'm very curious. As I always like to find out about my guests when they were youngsters. Now, when you grew up as a military family traveling around, were you spiritually inclined? Did you have any spiritual or supernatural experiences as a kid?
I did. My first encounter was at my grandmother's house in Montana on Easter Sunday. I was upstairs and there was this like hologram, I guess. I don't know. It was almost like a theater screen movie that came in front of me in my bedroom, and I saw Jesus. And I didn't know who Jesus was. No one had ever I didn't I mean, it wasn't until after that I found out, oh, that's Jesus. I just knew this man came and he was very, oh God, I'm gonna get emotional. Sorry, super loving. I felt it, and I knew that's what really, really made me go, I want to be like that guy, And I know there's a great amount of lots of different teachers who've been on earth. And for me, he's my teacher. And I have a lot of other teachers, but he's like my he's my main teacher.
I love. How old were you when that happened?
I want to say 4 or 5, not very old, not very old. And I remember like, my parents didn't go to church or anything. And after that, I felt like there were times when I would like see colors or equations or symbols. or just know things about people. Um, and I would say, oh, that guy's bad, or this guy, tell my parents things, and they're like, how did you know that? It's just I felt like maybe there was some sort of tune up in the process of that encounter. And I've had several encounters since then that are just unexplainable, um and with each one very tuned up to things. So we shared off camera. I had an extraordinary birth. I was born at 3:33. My name was given to me by my mom in a dream. And when she had the dream, she woke up and forgot what the name was. So I wasn't even named for a minute or two until she went to someone else's shower, and a couple weeks had two baby showers, and one was Michelle and one was, I believe, Rachel or something. And she put it together. She's like, oh, Sharnael. Somehow she got it. She was like, that's it. And I didn't find out until my 20s that it meant um Rose and Warrior of God. The EL is of God. And like even the doctor who delivered me was Dr. Harold Messenger. And I'm like,
Love
there's
that.
very strange, I don't know. Signs follow those who believe. And the word believe for me means to be alive in it. So I expect signs. I feel like I was born into signs. We all have that technology. We all have that DNA to have signs everywhere we go, to have miracles everywhere we go. Miracles to me are signs. But I expect it. And so if anyone believes in anything, that's what you're going to get. You only get what you are. And so I put a lot of emphasis on just knowing I'm going to know things. I'm going to see things. I'm going to hear things. I'm going to get confirmation. I'm going to have answers. I'm going to be introduced to the right people. The right people are going to come to me. And I have abundance already. It's already in my DNA. Like we all have everything that God has right in the cells of who we are. And when we remember that, remember, meaning to remember again, to be in alignment with Christ consciousness, then we put that radiation out into our biofield. And the technology is also magnetic. So we bring it to us as well. So what we think about, what we talk about, and what we feel is very, very important because that's a radiation. But also every cell in our body has a radiation, every organ has a radiation and a magnetic component as well. So it's really important to clear any genetic issues of programming, whether it's poverty or illness or mindsets that aren't serving us, and to be very super uber conscious of what we're thinking, what we're talking about, and what we're feeling.
Well, I had one more question about this interaction you had with a hologram of Jesus when you were 5. Was there any conversation between you and Jesus, or was it just simply his appearance to you?
It was an appearance, and I understood love in a
Mm.
different way. Something else happened. Let's see what that would be. Maybe around 2007 or 8. When I was born, they used forceps, and I actually have a bit of literal brain damage in the part that is time and space. So I literally have to write down even my children's birthdays, and I have to pull it up and look at it because dates are not easy for me. Time is not easy for me in the past. I don't want to speak that, but I'm just saying um, I was missing for 8 hours. I had a missing time thing. And all I remember is I walked into this room. I sat on the bed. I was going through another really, really difficult time. And I was just thinking, like, there's got to be more to this. And then there was like this bright light. And I heard, put your hands up. And I was like, what? And
Mm.
I literally put my hands in the air. Whew, sorry. And I felt like this like warm, like liquid, almost like honey that touched my fingertips and then started coming over my body and over my head and all the way down. And I've just felt this like warm sensation. I remember looking at the clock, it was like 8:26, something like that. And then I was gone. Like I don't remember a lot, except for I do remember Jesus again, and he was sitting Indian style, like cross legs, and I was in his arms, sitting on his lap. and I was small, and he was rocking me. And all he kept saying was, "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay." And he just kept saying that. And then I remember, like, I don't know what happened, but everything was gone and my hands were still raised, and my room was back. Like I could see my room again, and it was really, really light. And I remember a lot of light had come to the point, and I was like, "Where's this light coming from?" Because it's 8 o'clock at night, you know. And light was even coming from the window. So I got up and I walked over to the window and I looked out, thinking, like, why is this light shining through the window? And I look out the window and it's light everywhere. And I was like, how is it light? This makes no sense. Like, it was dark just a minute ago. And I look at the clock and it's like 8:30 something. I mean, like, minutes had just gone by. And I was just so disoriented and I was just like, what is happening? And I start walking around and going around checking computers and, the stove, all the clocks, to see, like, what is going on? Like, is this clock messed up? Like, this is before I had a cell phone, and um it had been a whole 12 hours that I just missed. I was just, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I just know the whole time it was just, it's okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. That is absolutely incredible. Yeah. And he's still saying it's okay. It's okay. Not just to you, to all of us. That's for sure. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm interested because you grew up in a non-religious family. So was this original encounter with Jesus, what led you to the ministry in the first place?
Yeah. When I went, I think it was first grade, I went to this school thing and this lady had this statue of like a bronze, maybe from chest up, structure, like cement, like a bronze statue thing, and it was this guy. And I was like, "Who's that?" And they told me his name's Jesus. And I was like, "Oh, well, they said Jesus. I don't Apparently Jesus isn't his name. It's like Jehovah or whatever. Yeah, I don't even know. But
Yeah.
the lady,
Yes. Yeah.
yes.
Yeshua. Yep.
So, but that the teacher said, "Oh, that's Jesus." She had it on her desk, and it wasn't a Christian school or anything. I guess that was back before things got so separated. But I was like, "Oh, okay, that's Jesus. Nice. Okay, I know who the guy is." And so then I was kind of obsessed with Jesus, and when I was in the military, or my parents were, we traveled a bunch, but I think they tried to take us to church a couple times. I don't, maybe for Christmas or something, or the holidays. And then when I moved to the South, it was a culture shock. I mean, it is not the same here than anywhere, and I've grown to love it. But people at the time, I was 13, they invited me to church, and I was just like, and they would say things like, "Are you saved?" And I was like, "What does that even mean? Like from a car accident or like a boat, drowning?" Or, yeah, I didn't know the terminal. I didn't understand it. I still don't really get. I don't believe like you have to read this paragraph and that gets you into heaven kind of deal. Like, but I went and they gave me a Bible. That's the first time I got a Bible. And I was so like, "Oh my God, Jesus is everywhere in here," and, really was obsessed with that. And, I know it's changed over and there's a lot of translations, and I really look at it more as quantum physics. But I was really obsessed with reading every line and, understanding each word and looking at the Hebrew and the Greek and breaking everything down. And yeah, so I guess, yeah, that was the catalyst for sure.
Pretty amazing. One of my favorite topics is that science, specifically quantum physics, like you just mentioned, and spiritual teachings are now coexisting, saying the same things but in different lingo. I know this is a big area for you. too. Can you speak to this topic of the meeting of science and spirituality somewhat?
That's a great question. A lot of people think it's separate. What is that about? Uh, like to me, one of the things I had another really big encounter in 2008-ish, which was the result of the book that you were talking about that you referenced earlier, The Science of Miracles. There is there's a saying that I really got during that encounter that I say quite often is you can't pee in the pool and hope it doesn't get everywhere.
Like,
There's not a smoking section, you know what I mean? Like if there's an area of your life that's not so great, it's going to affect every area, just like the pee in the pool. Like there's no way to like block it out. Like if you have a partnership issue, it's going to affect your health, your abundance, everywhere. And same thing, if your health is messed up over here is, and I see, and I remember being in like a really bad relationship and thinking it's them and I'll just get a new relationship and things will be fine, or a new job and things will be better. And it was like, no, the common denominator was me. I was creating these people to come into my life because it needed to be cleared. And once I realized I'm the creator of my health, I'm the creator of these relationships, I'm the creator of my jobs or my missions, like whatever the situation, that was the bad news is like, crap, you're a really bad creator, you know? Um, but the good news is if I created that, I can create the opposite as well. And I didn't have to, but I made the choice to create with consciousness and awareness instead of going by default creating whatever programming was there, whether it's genetics or environment of what I grew up in or different things that were said to me or things that I was taught in school or my parents, God bless them so much. But there's just subtle things, with media and movies and all the things that program. And so I have made the choice to be open to not only clearing those things, but looking into other things. And people say, well, what do you believe about this? What do you believe about that? It's like, I can tell you what I believe, but also I'm also open to knowing that this could probably change in 3 minutes because before I was locked in and I would be like, nope, that's the belief. And I had it all like locked in, like, don't touch my belief. Like, you're wrong. Everyone's wrong but me. And we have these groups of people that are all thinking this is right. And those are the people I hung out with. And we all just protected that belief system so much to the point of even being mean to others, like, no, you're wrong. And whatever, and now it's like the wall is down and I'm like, you know what? I'm open to knowing if there's something that I don't know. I'm open to looking at other people's perspective and seeing like, I can learn from everybody. And science in my past was very separate from religion. And religion by definition is division.
mhm.
Um, Science, to me, God is the biggest scientist of all. Like, how can you take away the science of God? God is science. So, whether it's physiology or biology or astrology and astronomy or, God is the creator of every single thing. And so how does science not be a part of what God created? Now can science be used in a bad way? Sure. We can all have good and bad experiences with the way people can use science, um, whether it's faking out certain things or lying or fraud or using it for harm. Um, all of those things are harm. But then there's like really good things like nature and looking into frequency and quantum physics and creating and using the technology that we have to create something with purpose, on purpose, in love, and authenticity.
I'm glad that you brought up a little while ago the fact that we each are the creator of our life. And most of the people in the world have forgotten this. I think as I've gone on in life as a student and teacher of the law of attraction and spirituality now, I have found on a daily basis, I'll find myself in a mindset or something or a situation that isn't so great, and then I finally learned as the creator of my life that I am, wait, that's not what I want. I choose to feel good right now. One of my mantras is injury and illness are not an option, and that perfect health and well being are my birthright. And so a few days ago, I had been around some people not feeling well, and I think that influenced me. And I got home and and the whole night I repeated that mantra. I woke up the next day really feeling great, went out for a run outside in 20-degree weather. Who cares, And so we are the creator. We can consciously choose to create the real things that we really want, which is happiness and health and good abundance and perfect, love and that type of thing. People have forgotten that, and I'm so glad you brought that up.
It is your birthright. It's all of our birthright. And why do they not teach this in school? Like, I think this should be elementary teaching, not just what they teach at home or what we teach at home, but we should be bilocating. I talk about all of this in the book, like bilocation, calling, like if you can't find something that you lost, there are simple ways to get things back. And I use this tactic and this formula all the time and it comes back. But this encounter that I had in 2008 with these two big beings of light, when that happened, I literally had so much information that I was like, this is overflowing. I had to grab a journal and I was just like, please don't go away. Please. I was writing everything down as fast as I could and had ongoing dreams and different things that still kept coming. And I literally felt it in my cells when this happened. And I had charts, I had pictures, I had graphics, I had words I didn't know, I had to look up, and it ended up all going into this book. And this book, The Science of Miracles, and remembering the frequency of love, remembering meaning to realign with God's source and that frequency, because love is a very high frequency. And when we stay in that standing wave of authenticity and truth and love, and that's the radiation, then we get the magnet back of those things. And we start attracting really fun, healthy people and opportunities for abundance and new missions and new partnerships and new collaborations. And maybe a check comes in the mail or, all the crazy cool things that we can create all the time. And I have a lot of examples of where people saw me somewhere else and that I even gave them a business card or wrote something and they called me on my answering machine and said, thank you so much for your talk with me. Real quick, we didn't get to finish. You gave me your number to call back. I was just calling back. And I was like, what, who is this person? And I kept like not responding. And finally, my kids were like, this lady has called 4 times. Call her back. And so I didn't want to tell her because she had said that she saw me in Memphis on so-and-so weekend. I was in Montana that weekend. So I was like, she must be having the wrong person or thinks I'm someone else. So I called her and I said, hey, look, I haven't called back because I didn't want to like embarrass this. I thought you had maybe the wrong person or maybe this is the wrong number, but I was not in Memphis. I think it was Memphis, somewhere in Tennessee that weekend. I was in Montana. I think you might have the wrong number. And then she's like, no, is it Sharnael, Wolverton, Sehon? Or you're the naturopath? And I was like, yes. And she's like, no, it was you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry to tell you, like I wasn't there. I was in Montana. She had a little card. She sent it to him, my signature, my phone number. It was very like I was like, what? And she was like, you told me this and this and this about my daughter. You were telling me that I could call you and you would help me with my daughter. And I said, what did she look like? Because I'm sure you're just confusing me with someone else. I was like, can you tell me what she looked like? Because we're on the phone and she can't see me. And she's like, she looked like you because she was you. Blonde hair. Do you have blonde hair? You're about so tight. I was like, I finally was like, you know what? Just tell me what you need and let me see if I could help you. And I was able to give her some help for her daughter. And I still don't understand it, but this has happened a few times now.
So you really can be in 2 places at once.
There is no time, there is no space. We're merely well, I would say merely, because merely sounds like it's not anything. We are powerful frequency. We are powerful supernatural radiation. We are the existence of God, and God is in us and in ourselves. And you had some mantras. Some of my mantras are God is the only power and presence acting here. And only God touches me, only God sees me, only God hears me, only God feels me. And what I mean by that is anywhere I go, I will only meet with people who would act like God or speak to me as God would or hear me the way God would speak. And what I mean is there's been times when I've said something and someone said, well, you said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I said this. And they're like, no, you said blah, blah, blah. So now I say, only God hears me, meaning they're only going to hear what God would say in me out. There's no twisting in the process of the frequency dissonance. There's only a mainstream frequency of love and authenticity and truth. So, but yeah, and calling things back that are lost. I had this encounter where I had these arm wrist weights because I love working out and every little bit helps, right? So I had these wrist weights and I was at the gym and I had taken them off and put them down and I didn't remember that. So I was going out of town to travel for a conference and I'm looking everywhere for these weights. And I'm like, I always would put them in my suitcase and bring them with me. And I was freaking out. I was looking everywhere. And all of a sudden I remembered, thank you, God, that I have my arm weights back. And I immediately saw in a picture, because we always say things like, I can't find them. I can't find them. Well, you keep saying that, you'll never find it. But if we say, thank you for remembering, and I'm God's hands holding my arm weights. I am God's eyes seeing my arm weights. I said those things. I immediately saw it in my head, putting it on the shelf next to the weight thing at the gym because I was about to weigh myself and I wanted an accurate weight and not with the extra weight. And so I called the gym and I said, hey, I left my weights there. Did anyone see them or pick them up? They're just little arm weights. And she was like, yeah, Dr. Sharnael, we found them. We put them in the lost and found. We didn't know they were yours. It was too late for me to pick them up that night. And I was leaving in a flight really early, so I wouldn't be able to come get them. So I was like, just hold on to them. And I hung up the phone. I was like, I'm glad I know where they are, but I was like, man, I want to get my weights for this trip. So I stressed about it for a minute and then I went to bed. I was laying there. I was like, you know what? Thank you, God, that I have my weights for this trip. And I just kind of put it out there. And the next morning I got up, I packed, I did the thing. I actually fixed my bed, which I never do. Um, and I left. When I got in the car, I remembered, I didn't forget, but I remembered that I left my phone plugged in next to my bed. So I was like, oh, I got to go get my phone. I'm going to need that on this trip. So I go in there, and when I do, I grab my phone. I look on my bed. My arm weights were crisscross on top of my bed, just sitting there. I was like, what in the heck? In the heaven. And so I was like, whoa, what happened? I grab them. And to add to that, I did call the gym and said, do you guys have my arm weights? They're like, they're gone. We don't know where they are. They were literally here last night. And crazy thing, I taught this to my kids. And I was doing a conference months later, and my daughter, I think she was 10, 8, and she had just got this new wallet. She was selling chocolate for her school at the desk at registration, and all these people were coming in, and she was selling chocolate. One guy came in and bought all the chocolate and gave her $40. So she had this new wallet, $40. She was telling everyone, "Oh my God, I'm so rich. I have $40." She thought she was just like, so the conference goes. She had told so many people on my staff and everyone, and conference is over, and I see her crying. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I can't find my wallet. I dropped it somewhere or something. It's missing. My money's gone. Like, she's so upset. And I was like, baby, it's cool. It's okay. We all look. We called the owner. No one's finding this wallet. And when we're out in the parking lot, I told the owner, if something comes up and you find it tomorrow or anytime, can you please give me a call? Gave him my number. We go home and I tell her before we're leaving, I said, look, remember what mom did with the arm weights? I was like, when we go home, it's going to be on my bed. Like, you just remember that you already have your wallet and you already have your money and it's already here. And she was like, oh yeah, okay, childlike faith. We go home, there's about 30 of us from staff that went to my house to kind of debrief from the conference. And we walk in, she makes a beeline for her room. I'm sorry, for my room. And fully expecting to see her wallet on my bed. And she came out and she's like, no, it wasn't there. I didn't even really think that it could happen. I was just trying to make her feel better, to be honest. I was just like, just think, we got this. And wanted her to not cry and be sad. And then she disappeared for a minute. And I was like, just talking. I was sitting on the computer talking to everybody. She comes running out. Oh my God. She's holding up her wallet. I was like, what? What the heck? And she's like, it was on my bed. It was on my bed. She had her wallet and her $40 intact. And literally, we all were like, what? Like, because all of us knew it was gone. We all looked. How did it get 30 miles away on her bed from another location? This is the abilities we have. Like,
Yeah.
we are that type of people.
What great stories. I just love this, and it is possible. But you're of course one step ahead of me here, because I was going to ask you, let's talk about your book, The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love. So what made you decide to write this book? It just sounds like you had an overload of information and you needed to let it come out.
You're right. That's 100%, Carl. It took 12 hours. Don't have the greatest handwriting, as anyone would say. Sometimes I write things and I'm like, what does that say? I can't remember what I wrote. But I wrote it out, and then I felt like it needed to be typed. I wanted the world to have it. I contacted the lady who does help with my publishing, and she had given me a deadline, and yeah, it turned into this book. And like I said, there's graphs and charts, and I'm not the best artist, but I do have like some encoding there of some things. We go into echo waves and how to offer echo waves and how they come back and how they can cancel out different things, go into like the biofield, and how there's different numbers for different things and how they can cancel each other out, or that they can be in a positive to get some momentum and to get out of patterns that aren't serving us. How to clear genetics, how to clear maybe negative programming. I talk about conscious language, a lot of stuff about nature and coding through nature, and biohacking and frequency. And I talk about bilocating and energetic purgatory, talk about frequency hopping. There's a lot of things in here that yeah. And sometimes I literally look back and go, wow, I don't remember that part. And because literally it just came through me so fast that I don't even know where, it came from someone besides me. I believe maybe Jesus or these beings that showed up. It was just like, blah, 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 let me get this out. And I mainly wrote it because I was scared that it would, like, again, that I would forget. And I wanted it for me, but then it turned into a bestseller and a lot of people are applying it. They even use this in homeschools, in some homeschools, to teach kids, which again, I think I wrote it in a way that anyone young, I wrote it so my kids at the time could read it and understand it. And I just want everyone to remember and know how capable we are and how supernatural we are. And actually supernatural should be natural. It should be just common to have miracles every single day.
It's interesting. Well, first of all, just a reminder to the viewers and audience, we are talking to the amazing Sharnael Wolverton Sehon, and some incredible stories and beautiful information. You were just talking about writing your book, how it came through you. My most recent book is True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. And I'll go back, some nights I'll go to bed and I'll open my book up and read a chapter and I'll put it down and go, I wrote that?
Right?
No,
it's so true.
Download from source.
It's so funny.
It's a download from source. That's how I wrote the book too, just like you did.
Yes. Like my name is on there that it's my book, but I'm also just like, where did that come from? I don't know, it's like I needed this reminder, so I've read it a few times, like, and I'll probably read it a few more times.
And I can tell anybody who wants to write a book but say, no, I'm not a good writer. Just sit down in front of the laptop and just sit there and let it come through. And I'll tell you, it will. We're going to wind up here in a little bit, but I've read, well, first of all, let's talk about healing. I am an administrator for a very large Power of Eight healing group on Facebook. Lynn McTaggart's book, The Power of Eight, created that. And I read on your website that you say the body can heal itself. How can people learn to heal themselves and possibly the people around them too?
Yeah, I didn't know that about you. You're gonna have to hook me up with that group. I'm excited about that. If it's available to go to anyone. I love her work. She is so awesome. So that's cool. We don't have to learn how to heal. Our body heals anyway. If we cut ourselves, we don't have to go, let me learn how to heal this. Like, it just, the body just starts healing automatically. Just like if we take anything that isn't great for us, it'll start to detox automatically because it's like, this isn't good. We don't want this. And antibodies and all the things are just like, oh, let's get this out. The liver works. We don't have to go, hey, heart, you better beat down there. Remember how to beat. Um, but I do understand what you're saying. There is an aspect of relearning how to give the best nutrients, how to be response able with the technology and with this skin of the suit that we have that encases spirit and soul and mind and whatever that is, consciousness. And yeah, I mean, some people are taught to eat crappy and sit on the couch and not get outside, and that's their entire life of just playing video games and
Mm.
Netflix and never knowing that it's great to be on a hike or in the trees or on the water or, and then other people, that's the way they grow up and it's totally normal, so there are people that should look into different ways to heal. But again, if we detox and we don't expose ourselves to the things that we would have to detox, and we put in good antioxidants and foods and water and like nature and all of that, and that is a part of our lifestyle, not a diet. Because to me, diet indicates you're going to do this for a minute, you might lose some weights, and then you're just going to go back to the old crap. I make this like a choice every day. Um, and some days I don't do great, but for the most part, I eat consciously, um, and I drink consciously, and I think consciously, and I speak consciously, and I'm around and aware of my surroundings, not just in my physical home, but at my work and who I work with. I mean, there's a lot of study on you are like the top five people that you hang around with the most.
Mhm.
And I just read a study where 11 corporations, big corporations with over 58,000 people, got together to see if you're around certain people, how your effort at work, how your performance at work um, would it be higher or lower? Would there be a better response depending on who you work with or not? And what they did is they put someone next to another person who wasn't performing well. I think it was 50 feet. They were just sitting 50 feet away from someone who had zero, like pretty much no performance. And that person went down in their performance 30%.
Wow. Wow.
They did the other thing where only 25 feet away, they put someone who was a really high achiever, someone who really, really worked well and outperformed everyone. And this person went up and increased 50%,
Mm.
50% in outload and performance. And I'm not saying performance is all where it's at because I think we can get to where we're in this like unconditional love because we have to perform or we're not loved. And there's all these tricks and mind things that go on to people and their purpose and their mission. But just on a being level of on a spiritual consciousness level, who you hang out with, if they're thinking negative, if they're into stuff that isn't great for your purpose, that's going to affect you whether you think so or not. And just like if you move into a subdivision and you buy the house that's only $100,000, I'm just making up numbers, but all around you are $5 million houses, your equity will automatically go up just because you're around all those things. And that's how we are as people. It's very important to be consciously selective on the people that we're with. Now, I will say, I'm not saying don't hang out with other people and don't like everyone and don't love everyone because they don't think like you and do it, because that could be judgmental, and there's a karma and an energy to judgment and judge. I have videos on this on my YouTube about the spirit or the science of judgment. And you can judge and you will get judged. And so I freely open where everyone is on their path. I freely love what people do and what they choose. And also, I'm very choosy on an intimate level of who I spend the most time with, because I value my energy and I value my balance. And I mean, I'm sure you have your own kind of practice of those kind of things.
Well, and two, you mentioned the power of your own word and your thought, and I have found now that I really try very diligently to listen to source, and so many times I'll find myself thinking or saying something that is in a negative realm, disempowering, and I'll actually hear in my head, "Don't put your energy there. Don't put your energy there." And I go, "Oh yeah, okay." Well,
Who is that? Who is that to you? I'm curious. That inner voice.
it's to me it's God. It's or my team of guides and angels and spiritual guides, and I call them Team Carl. And
Oh,
yeah, and I've start to I finally realized that, like, if I come out of the bathroom and I meant to bring something out, and it's almost like there's, hey, you forgot, and I realize I'm actually being reminded by my team. But you can do that with your thoughts and your words too. And if you listen, hey, don't put your energy there. Don't put your words there. Don't put your thoughts, because that's not what you really want.
yes. And or I say, think again.
Yeah,
So I don't
absolutely.
like, I try not to use words like don't or can't. There's actually science to those words. When people say, I can't do this, um, I can't serve. The word cancer, I can't serve. There's a physical, and people who say I doubt it, a lot of times will have a conversion disorder of inflammation and phlegm. A lot of people who just say I'm done, cancel clear, um, their body will start to shut down. Like, and there's all these like culturally accepted conscious language phrases that people say, like, oh, I choose to even say the right, they'll say like, oh, I laughed till I died, cancel clear, or oh, I'm dying, cancel clear. And they mean it like in a funny way, but it's not funny because the subconscious is literal and it hears that and it says, okay. And it just starts the ball rolling. So I find myself course correcting quite often, like you said, like I'll hear that too. And sometimes I'm just quiet because I'll know I have to take time to form my sentences because I don't want to have to cancel clear everything I constantly say. And just it takes practice. It took practice for me of just remembering even how to speak. And then realizing, oh shoot, if I'm saying these things, that means I'm thinking it or feeling it. So then having to go back and replace new programs that God is the only power and presence here, and or only God touches me, only God hears me, or I am already divine health, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah, and that's, I think that people watching or listening to this, they really need to grab onto what you and I are talking about here, because it really can change their daily path. But, one of the best forms of advice that Spirit ever gave me, being a runner, for 44 years now. And many times I've fallen down while I was running a dirt trail, and you trip over a rock or something, and I never really get injured. But I've always heard, and I apply this to other areas of life, but like you fall down in life in a certain aspect, and says, a source always says, Carl, get up, brush the dirt off, keep moving forward, and don't look back. Get up, brush the dirt off, keep moving forward, and don't look back. And man, that's the best advice I ever had. And it keeps me from being depressed to say, oh, why did I do that? Blah, 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 blah. But it's very cool. I really enjoyed it. And by the way, your kitty's really relaxed right behind your head there.
This is Rosie, and I have Blue running around somewhere. I actually work part-time at a animal shelter, and I was telling you earlier, I have fostered and bottle fed 117 kittens since 2017, and 6 dogs. So yeah, I love animals, so maybe more than people.
A 14-pound cat, Maya, made an appearance, but she stayed on the ground. I think she wants me to order her a pizza later on.
14 pounds. That is just like, I would love to see this cat. You're gonna have to send me pictures. I don't know if I've ever seen a 14-pound cat in my life, but that's interesting.
Well, we're gonna wind up here. Sharnael, what's the best way for people to connect with you and work with you, and what's your website?
Yeah. Everything is on my website, which is www.drsharnael.com. It's DRSHARNAEL, like Israel. I have all my social media platforms there. Twitter, well, it's X now. Instagram, Facebook. You guys can follow me at all the places. But I do have a podcast on Thursday, every week at noon, where I talk about the paranormal and how to tap into miracles and health and Bigfoot and UFOs and spiritual things. And we have a lot of cool authors and guests and directors and actors. And but I have biofeedback services, as well as information about my practice here in Louisiana. I have my books there. I have online courses. So if you can't come to me, or one of my conferences or retreats, then you can learn about the science of miracles. There's a course on the science of miracles. There's a course on muscle testing, outcome mapping, using your creation abilities to create your life and get out of those snags. But there's all kinds of things there, and I would love to work with anybody who's maybe stuck or feeling like they're in energetic purgatory and trying to figure out the next thing and just going like, oh my gosh, how do I move forward? And that's kind of my wheelhouse of helping people, not only in physical health, but mental and emotional. And I can usually listen to someone within 4 to 5 minutes talking, and I can find the snag and we can work it out. It's pretty interesting.
And I did want to. We kind of ran out of time. I'm glad you brought up your podcast, True TV, which is very cool. I've been checking out some of the videos, and I will put all the links to your stuff in the show notes for this. And again, Sharnael, you are amazing. I love everything that you're doing, and I really appreciate you. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
Well, I'm very honored and just blessed to attract you, or we attracted each other. And World Awakenings, I mean, you are living that out. You're embodying that. And I said this earlier, but we need people like you so much, because there's a lot of opposite energies in the world and this culture. And, for every bit of light that we all watching and listening can bring forth, every little bit counts, and everything that we do inside affects the whole collective. So just keep working on your insides, and thank you, Carl, for being the light in this world and for bringing awakening to this. I mean, from my heart, thank you so much.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.